I grew up working with my dad, and when I was about 18, I kind of went off on my own. And it was only these last couple years where we got back into pound netting that I've worked with my dad. Because, you know, as a teenager, you butt heads with your dad, so I kind of had to go in my own direction. And I worked on my own forever, gill netting and crab pot, and got my own boat and all that. And, you know, I mean, I'm getting older. That's kind of why I want to do this film. That way I got, you know, 20 years, 30 years down the road, I have documentation of this. Something for my son to watch, you know, all that, so.
Actually look like they're getting somewhere over there.
It does.
Huh?
Tell you what, they got that other crew that's been coming in. They've been knocking shit out.
You guys better get your all skins and
Pavement
All
down
right,
there.
I'll stop by that boat and grab all their shit. You ain't got that much more net either, so.
I think those on pile right there.
Yeah, you ain't gotta. Whatever's easiest for you.
yeah.
You good? I think we got everything, don't we? Rope in the boat? Yeah. Crab pot on. Arrow for rope, you're all. Let's go.
So I basically am first generation. I grew up doing this all I've ever known. I'm mostly gill netting most of my life, crab potting some. We just got into the pound netting, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. We bought one and then ended up buying out a whole bunch more. It was just easy for us, and bait's expensive, and we figured we could catch our bait out of that, and then the good fish, you know, would make a little bit extra money off of it, and then opportunity come for the rest of them, and we just kind of went ahead with it because it seemed like it was a pretty good idea. Last year we pound netted from the end of January all the way till now. We've had traps in since January, so it's December. We fished 12 months this year. Next year we probably won't do it as much, probably won't put them in until about March or so. We were trying to catch more rock in the spring. We had a nice winter last winter, you don't get that lucky.
Yeah, we're going to drift around.
Well, it's basically like a maze for a fish, I guess, because it doesn't really catch the fish, it just directs them into a final pocket. So when the fish are swimming down the shoreline, they run into the lead, and the lead is big enough that almost every fish could swim right through it, but they see that pattern in the water and turn, and once you've turned them offshore, you have the heart or the bays that just kind of keep funnel them in, and then the head has another funnel. So it's basically just a maze for the fish, and it just kind of directs them to the final end. And I mean, some of them can swim out. It's not an end, you know, it ain't like a gill net. When you catch them, you got it. Like a pound net, the fish can swim right out of it if it wants to. But generally they don't, you know, they sit there and just swim around in a circle. And so when we start fishing the net, on every pole around the net, there's call it out hauler or down hauler. It's a rope that goes through a chain at the bottom of the pole out to the net, and it basically makes a square box in the water. And so we untie that so the bottom of the net can come up all the way around. And on the end, we untie the funnels so that that's not holding us in place. And then we'll drop one side of the trap so we can slide the boat in. And we have the boat right over top of the funnel. And those lines on the back that we untie hold the funnel. There's a chain on the bottom of the funnel, and those lines go down to the end of a pole, and they hold that chain on the bottom so it's not bouncing off. And that's what keeps the trap fishing. So when we go to fish it, we untie those and pull that chain up, and that kind of directs the fish away from the boat to the other side where we web up to. And then those two lines on the side, where you see where we start fishing, they just go to the bottom, and they're just like a lazy line that you grab, pull up, and it pulls up the bottom of the trap where we start webbing across. And then when you web across, we're pulling net, and as you're going, we're dropping net too, because the net's tight under the boat from where it was going. So as you're going, you kind of web across, drop, web, drop, until you got a pocket of fish and then bail them out. The thing about a pound net, you really don't know. I mean, you never know what they're gonna catch. When we started catching flounder this year, it went from a couple fish a day to a couple 100 pounds to, you know, a boatload within a couple days, and then that little spurt, you know, comes through, and then it's over with. Because we basically catch migratory fish, so you're not catching fish that are just hanging out. You're catching them when they got somewhere to go, from point A to point B, and that keeps them swimming. The flounder and rock is probably the higher demand. We catch a lot of, you know, the smaller bony fish like croaker and spot and stuff like that that don't really have as high of a demand price-wise, except for certain city markets and stuff like that. But I mean, flounder is an easy fish. Everybody likes flounder and rock.
Two fish, 42 pounds. So they're $3 a pound, it'd be 12. These are $1 a pound, so it's 4, so $16.
And so once we get in, most times the fish are still alive when we're here. And then you take and we sort them by size. Flounder, you know, you got medium, large, jumbos, and rockfish get split up basically every 4-pound increment kind of. Rockfish get split a lot of different ways. And so you got to size it for certain markets, because your restaurants want the bigger fish, and your average person, you know, wants the smaller fish, so like a retail market type of thing. So we got to keep track of a dozen different laws every day, mainly to start with. So we catch a variety of fish, so you got to know size and season on all those fish right from starters, because you got to know what you got to throw back right from the start.
My brother bought this thing for moving his lumber where he builds docks, and that's been the best thing to have around here. Because we can load piles of fish so easy, it's so smooth. You got two over here, a little bit more. At least this one hits tires first, you're not ramming shit.
On the pole.
What is that barrel you use?
This should be the one. This is it.
Father and I get to see him every day, you know. We get to butt heads, but ultimately figure out what's going on. We get along, we both kind of know how to just get stuff done.
It's too good to be true, and I looked at his profile and even I didn't pick that shit up when he lived up.
So we don't really have to talk about a lot of stuff. Like when something needs done, if we're doing it, we kind of can get it all done without having to tell people, hey, do this, do that, do that. We can just do it. I mean, we still butt heads. You hear us out there. We argue back and forth, but that's healthy, I guess. You're gonna have some tension in a work environment, but we usually laugh it off, kinda, so. We don't take nothing too serious. Try not to, at least.
On here. This is it. I didn't realize there had 2 barrels on here. Nobody knows what's going on around here. We'll figure it out as we go. So I'd like to know who's in charge around here. This fucking boss man needs to show up and get it straight.
The hardest part about it is just waking up. So if you got someone who can wake up before the sun rises, the rest falls into place, because that's 90% of commercial fishing is just showing up. If you can't wake up before the sun comes up, you can't do the job. I mean, that's kind of the precursor right there for it all. You can be the hardest worker in the world, but if you don't show up, it doesn't amount to anything. So.
What is it about working on the water for you? I remember the one part where it really shined when we were out for flounder. You didn't want anybody else getting that baler.
Well, we spend months mending it. I spent days and weeks standing in this yard tying just knot after knot after knot. And the money spent getting it in, and then that final moment of when you're bailing the fish out is kind of the pride moment for me that, I don't know, I like being in it and seeing everything as it's coming to, because then I get a first-hand experience of what's in the trap. But yeah, I don't let anybody else bail unless there's a lot of fish.